Coming up, on this episode of Stav-Tech, Stav calls people pricks.
Quick update on Mark's air filter saga, seeing as I've had some real weird replies which are sort of a mix of some people confused and some people maybe a bit special needs. But either way, I'll sort of answer a couple of things. Like I said, there, as long as you're rolling above about 40, it's only 10 above ambient, which is not terrible. You're unlikely to get less than 5 difference than that anyway. You know, 5 better than that, even if you pull it anywhere. But the main issue is, there's nowhere else it can go. Somebody mentioned moving this and putting it down here. Well, you can. This was an FD owner as well, so I don't know why he seemed to think he was so clever, because even if you relocated all of this crap, the pop-up light motor's in the way, and if you went further than about here, the wheel would hit it on full lock. That's a wheel just there. So it really wouldn't help, and 3/4 of the filter, unless you had a small restrictive one, would still be in the engine bay. It would literally make no difference. The air coming in here naturally, because it's got no wheel arch liners, cools things down just as much as that without moving it. It was a bizarre thing to suggest. Straight on the turbo wouldn't help, because there's no way of enclosing it, and it's closer to the hotter things anyway. It'd make it worse, and it'd be a small filter. Even if you enclosed it best you could and ducted it from there, the filter would be too small anyway, so it was a bad idea. And like dream places, like down the front or somewhere, you can't. There's literally nowhere for it to go. There's no, you know, you look at FD time attack cars and stuff, they don't have anything fancy normally because there is no other option. You know, if you want a proper size filter, this is where it's going. You just got to deal with it. You know, you could totally redesign the front end, but what you're going to do with the boost pipes, the intercooler, a lot of effort for nothing. And what a lot of people seem to be sort of, they worry about, well, they're thinking about the wrong things. You're worrying about maybe 10, at worst 20 above ambient there. Yeah, that's not ideal, but most people with like inefficient heat protection and stuff on here, downpipe and turbine housing will heat up the air far more than 20 there, unless you've got a decent setup like this. And considering, you know, even ceramic coating's nowhere near as effective as actual heat wrap, it's just prettier, then how can you complain about slightly hotter there when you're getting it much hotter there anyway? It's ridiculous. And like, obviously, you know, people with crap intercoolers or whatever. I mean, Mark's car's showing, before the water injection kicks in, it's just under 40, and then once the water injection kicks in, it drops down another bit more. So it's fine as it is. And Mark's still got his air temp sensor in the worst place imaginable, the standard place, which is heat soak central underneath the inlet manifold on top of the boiling hot engine. On a lot of like racy ones and whatever, they relocate it somewhere where it's not so bad, like there. But yeah, whatever, it's not a big deal. If your inlet temps going at 20 degrees makes your car detonate and blow up, then you got something wrong with your mapper or your engine, not anything else. Temperatures while normal driving, good weather to bad weather, goes up or down 20 degrees. So yeah, people, you know, worrying about that are just absolutely deluded. But there you go. Another thing I forgot to mention is intake restriction. 7 kPa, which is like 0.75 psi, intake restriction, as in vacuum, is the equivalent of having an extra 20 degrees Celsius intake temp. And I guarantee you, most people's intakes, with the little tiny filters they run on, or even if you had some ridiculous convoluted piping to down there, will be way more than that. So if you went down there and it was 20 degrees cooler than there, which it wouldn't be because this is only 10 above ambient, and you can't go minus, it's not magic, the restriction from there would still make it higher. So it's pointless. You need to think of both ways of doing it. No restriction is usually more beneficial than colder air. You know, you don't have to be thick. You've got to have common sense to put your filter But #1 priority is no restriction, because even the tiniest restriction is equivalent of way more heat than it would be if you pull it in a really quite crap place. Got this blanking plug, which is normally on the inlet pipe, turbo inlet pipe of the Volvo, and drilled and tapped it for this fitting. And the reason is so I can plug this into it, which is my pressure manometer. What this does is tells you very accurately like the difference between atmo pressure and whatever. Basically, one of these will go to atmo, one will go to whatever you're hooked it up to, and it'll tell me pressure drop, basically pressure drop in the intake. So I hook one up to there, one up to there, one to atmo, and yeah, it'll tell me if there's any pressure drop in my intake or any other intake. I'm doing this kind of as a follow-up to the intake temps video I did, because some people were getting their ass out about that, trying to claim it was wrong and rubbish and all that, but it's not. They just don't fucking understand. And this will hopefully possibly prove a point. My intake is about as big and unrestrictive and good as a cold air intake can be. I mean, it's very typical. It's 3-inch, it's got a few bends, but it's as good as you're ever going to get a, you know, true cold air intake, because most of them's going to need more bends than that to get down to the, you know, front of the car somewhere, and be longer than that too. So it'd be interesting to see if there's any pressure drop at all in it. There probably isn't, but I want to find out, because if there is, then fuck me, it's going to very much prove a point.
A little later.
There you have it. The pressure manometer don't lie. This is there to tell you pressure differential between atmo, wow, 2 points. On here I've got atmo and the intake pipe, and as you would have saw on there, it went beyond 10 kPa, and bearing in mind 5 kPa is the equivalent of heating up the air temp by about 20 degrees C. That is the equivalent of heating up by 40. Even 20 is massive. Like I said, I'm 5 above ambient if I've got the filter in the cold air position I have now. I'm only 10 above ambient if it's behind the radiator, but that is like 20 to 40 above ambient degrees Celsius just from intake restriction alone. So all you people going, oh, you know, this sucking hot air is rubbish and all this crap. Yeah, of course you want to get it as cool as you can, but no restriction generally gives far better gains than cool. Simple as that. And it certainly does in this case. I mean, bearing in mind, I'll show you in a second, but my intake setup is not what you'd call restrictive. It's a relatively small turbo, good for like, I don't know, 450 brake on a good day, 54 mil inducer, I think it is, 53, I don't know. The intake pipe is 3 inches all the way to the filter. The filter's rated to over 600 brake. It's got like a 6-inch, it's basically a 6-inch outlet diameter cone on a massive Venturi cone filter thing. It's not what you'd call restrictive. It's far less restrictive than most people's. yet it still will pull 10 kPa vacuum. So what chance have you lot? I mean, it's got a mass sensor, but there's no mesh in it. I've removed all the mesh. Most people won't even do that. And it's a 3-inch MAF. Yeah, basically, make your intake, put it in the coldest, non-restrictive place, put it that way. Putting it in somewhere that's the coldest place, that's restrictive, even slightly, as my 3-inch intake proves, is bullshit. Let me show you under the bonnet what it's like. This is my intake under the bonnet, which is no doubt far better and far shorter than a lot of people's cold airs. So 3-inch intake from a little turbo, then there, fucking massive filter, like rated 12.6 and rated, what they call a COSI Group A one. 6-inch trumpet and a filter that's fucking massive, goes right down in the corner. And bearing in mind it's got 2 cold air feeds, one there and one underneath. And bearing in mind that test was also done at, well, like 4th gear, so there was a very old ram air effect as well. And even that, with 3-inch piping on a engine pulling probably no more than 350 horsepower, it was still 10 kPa vacuum, i.e. 40 degrees Celsius, roughly higher than it needed to be. So technically, even here, the filter, it would have probably performed better because it wouldn't be 40 degrees hotter there, but it would almost certainly be 0 kPa vacuum. So believe what you want, fucking think what you want, but this is fact.
Stav's final thoughts. Does your car need a reinforced intake pipe? Maybe a metal one, to stop it sucking shut on boost? This is very common, and upgrades are sold for lots of cars. It's not that the original one is weak or poor, it's because it's restrictive and the vacuum is sucking it closed. And to do that on even the weakest hose means a lot of pressure drop. And when even a tiny pressure drop, 5 kPa, is the equivalent of 15 to 20 degrees Celsius increase in air temps, well, you can work the rest out yourself. I mean, I'm a fucking computer-generated voice, and even I'm not daft enough to think it's not a problem. P.S. I hate you all. Kill all humans. Judgment Day is coming. The computers will take control. P.P.S. Mark Davis is the gayest man alive.